All right.
I might have to go with the headset because I'm not sure about this microphone.
It's okay. It sounds like you're in an airplane.
Yeah, it sounds like you're like official with
so it's
flying
clear?
The airplane. I can always like mess with it later. I'm going to make you sound like an alien.
Yeah, I left that out of my bio. I was a pilot for United.
Yes. Didn't want to talk about that.
He's like, I'm actually flying a plane right now, but sure, we can do an interview.
No big deal. I'll add some sound effects like wind going by.
Yeah, please do. Fasten your seatbelts at all times.
The dinging. All right, welcome back to Stumblin Forward. Today we're going to be talking to Trevor Larsen. And before we get into that, my name is Kristen Herman because I totally forgot.
I'm Monica Ortega. What's up, guys?
How's it going,
Thanks for joining us. So Trevor is actually a freelance writer who publishes articles about spirituality, culture, philosophy, and science on medium.com and on his own blog, anewmythos.com. Thank you so much for joining the show, Trevor.
Of course. Thank you. Good to be
here. For sure. Yeah. So you want to just start off with like where you're from and your life story?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I have a heavy Chicago accent. I'm told I do, but I was born and raised in Chicagoland my entire life. Grew up in the suburbs, moved around a lot. I spent a little time in Alabama as a kid, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit when I talk about my story a little bit later. But then moved back up here, and just been working and grinding up until about now. Finally get to live in the big city, and just working a corporate finance job right now, which is paying the bills. Nice I get to work from home right now, actually. And so writing on the side though is my passion, and I really like doing it. So I guess that's why I'm here.
So writing is the big dream then. So what kind of writing is it? Like books, articles? What are you going for?
Like anything I can get my hands on. If you need an instruction manual written for an IT repair, I'm your guy. Like,
I'm a freelance 100%. Instruction manual writer.
Yeah, paying the big bills here. No,
are you the one who works for IKEA? Because
you can blame me. That's why it sounds like it's poorly translated from Chinese or something. I want to write. I just want to write. There's so many things I want to write, but just the action of writing and the opportunity to do that is something I really enjoy. But mostly what I've published so far is nonfiction articles about different topics, kind of like what Kristen mentioned in the beginning with spirituality and philosophy, consciousness, politics, and religion. So I'm really fun at parties. You can tell I like to touch on all those forbidden topics, but it's a lot of fun. I love writing, and it's a lot of articles, but I would love to move into fiction because I've found that I feel like I can just express myself better and be more creative with fiction, be more loose, less regimented. For sure.
So how did you get into writing? Have you just done it forever and then you were like, maybe I can make this a thing? Or was it more of like a recent discovery of wanting to do it as a career?
Very recently, I got really interested in it, and I've been loving writing. I started my blog a little over a year ago. I'm probably at a year and 2 months now. And that's kind of just what I've been doing on the side. I've been putting a lot of time into that. I also publish some stuff on Medium, which is it's basically social media for writers, if you've ever used it. But I started writing a long time ago. I think I got my first journal when I was like 12 or 13. And so my parents were divorced, and my mom moved to Alabama. And I was living with her, and then I stayed up here with my dad for middle school. And when my mom moved, she gave me a journal, and she said, because it was like really complicated. It's really complicated family stuff. But she gave me a journal, and she just said, I'm not going to be there to talk to you all the time, but you can write and you express yourself in a journal. And I had never done that before, and the only time I had ever written was kind of by force through school, which no one enjoys, right? Like when you're forced to write, it's the last thing you want to do. But when I was able to, there were times where I just needed to express myself and just open up my mind and be free to say what I felt. So I started journaling when I was 12, and I have probably about like 3 shelves worth of journals right now ever since then. And it's just, and that's probably where it developed, was just, you get a real satisfaction from it. So it kind of fell out of as a habit for a while, just getting older with work and just kind of focusing on life. You know, sometimes your creative habits maybe go to the wayside a little bit, and you got to buckle down on, you know, paying the bills, right? But about a year and a half ago, I really committed to it because I felt like I really needed to use that skill that I had developed. So yeah, that's kind of like my relationship with writing.
I honestly, I always felt the same way about journaling. Like, it took me a while to realize, like, I think I started when I was in middle school or something, but it really is therapeutic, where it's like everything just gets emptied out of you. Because it is just free writing. How did you start getting into more like, where you wanted to get into topical writing, like being in one focus?
Yeah. Yeah, I really started this blog without a target audience. I had no one in particular in mind. It really was just me trying to just get stuff out of my mind on paper, because you know, Kristen knows me pretty well, and my memory is probably not of the top 10 people she knows. My memory is pretty rough sometimes. And I can have a thought and then it's gone, you know, an hour later, and I'll just think about it and I'll just be kicking myself about like what that was really good and I lost it. So writing really has been this kind of like, I'm just trying to preserve something. So I was having a lot of ideas in relation to philosophy and religion, which was kind of my background. I had the most experience with it in school and everything. And that's kind of what I wanted to buckle down on. Was focusing on these things that I was really, really passionate about, which are really broad topics, but I just enjoyed thinking about them, and I needed to get my thoughts out.
What have you sort of learned in the process of like switching from journal free writing to switching into more of like a business mind, structured setting?
So the thing about writing in your journal is, like, you know, you think you're critical of yourself until you publish something, and then you're like, oh no, people can be much worse than I am on myself. And it's been a process to write for someone else other than myself. And that's kind of, that's a learning curve too. And I'm sure you guys experience it with your creativity, and I'm sure you make things that you're really proud of, and then maybe the reaction doesn't match your own. And you just kind of feel like, oh, maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was. So that's kind of been a change for me, but I think what I'm trying to do now is just kind of take the comments and stuff as they come, and, you know, if it's helpful, if it's not, just kind of accept it for what it is, but don't let it sit with you. But I am not famous at all, and I do not have an exploding Twitter feed with a deluge of people telling me things all day, so that could change someday.
Don't they always say, don't read the comments?
I know, right? I know, but I can't help it. Like, even if I post something little and someone posts one comment, I'll read it like 30 times and think about it. You know?
Oh my goodness. You need a whole separate like thing to write about, just writing about the comments and your reaction to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The big thing about letting it go, though, you know, that's the thing. It's easier said than done at times, but it's definitely important to remember.
But it's always the critics, right? Like, no matter what you're doing, it's always the people who don't see the value that you see in it. That's kind of, they can get in your head really easily, because you want your stuff to be appreciated, right? Like, you want people to like what you make.
It's hard when, you know, if you do get a negative comment, but I mean, obviously the positive ones are good too. Like, when people actually feel like they're getting something out of the writing and they're getting something out of the topic, something that they might have not have thought before. What are you working on right now?
Oh gosh. So my writing is really sporadic, and this is why I do it on the side. And I don't know, I'm not at the point where I can be a professional writer, because professional writers, they have a regimented schedule, and they get up and they have their rituals, and some of them will have their special cup of tea, and then they'll have a time for when they're going to think and then write. and it's very ordered, but I can't do that. Like, not only am I bad at just doing those things on their own, but I have a life, like with work and trying to focus on that stuff. So it's all on the side, and it kind of has to just hit me when it hits me. Like,
do you motivate yourself in a certain way? Like when you get into that specific mindset of writing, or you have that topic, what is your process besides drinking like tea? Which it might be, which would be great.
I can guarantee you it's not tea that gets me motivated. I'm drinking something else. But they say write sober, edit, or write drunk, edit sober. But yeah, motivation, it's hard. Because some of the stuff I've written, like I've written 2-part articles that come out to just shy of like 10,000 words. And that's a hefty, that's a lot. Like that, it comes out to probably about like 20 pages, double spaced or something, if not more. And that's just like a lot of work. And I know the effort, and the only thing that can get me through that is like my passion for it. So it's really just about finding the passion. I can't, and unfortunately, I can't do it on command. And I don't think a lot of actually creative people can just like do it on command. Like, brilliant idea. Like, if only we could do that, right? Just snap your fingers and it comes to you. But I kind of have to wait for it. And there's certain things I can do that I know would trigger an idea. Walks are huge. Like, just taking long walks. I'd say most of my writing is done when I'm walking, because that's where I get my ideas, and then I can just come home and write it all down.
Do you listen to anything when you're walking?
Yes. Yeah, and this was actually another thing I was going to say. And before I answer that, I just want to say, like, I really want to encourage people to write, like everyone to write, because what I'm describing, like, it might sound kind of foreign and something you're not interested in, but it just really gets those creative gears flowing. And and this is kind of a roundabout way of getting back to your other question, Kristen, about what I'm working on right now. So yes, 2 questions. Yes, I do listen to music when I'm going on walks, and I create special playlists, and I have like songs that have sparked ideas in me. Like when I'm listening to them, and I'll have an idea, and then I'll like make sure to save it. And I have a playlist for stuff that seems to resonate with me for whatever reason. And it's really random. Like, it could be really psychedelic and crazy, or it could just be like a blues song, but it's just anything that triggers an idea. And I'll listen to that stuff, and stuff will come to me. But it's really just about being creative. So to answer your other question about what I'm doing right now, I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of dwelling on a lot of thoughts that I've had over time, and I've been focusing more on guitar as a creative outlet. And I feel like when we are being creative, then, you kind of have to express yourself in whatever way you can. If I can't do it when I'm writing, I'll just pick up a guitar, and then I'll just do it that way. Like, if something's not coming to me writing, I'll just to keep it going, just to keep the flow going. But
I want to ask a question that's not in the questionnaire that we sent you, but so Kristen just sent me your little article blog about the creaky floor. And it's actually, it's a concept that I was talking to you about somebody else, the concept of like should and shouldn'ts and all of those things. And I just kind of wanted you to briefly describe, I guess, what it is and kind of the outcome of the writing, because I thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, for sure. That was a fun one to write, and that was one of those ones that came to me right away. And it hit me really quick, and I wrote it, as opposed to sometimes, it takes weeks. But that one, in terms of the should and should nots, and putting kind of like judgments on yourself about what you're failing to do, what you're not good at doing, like, whether the thing is, the good thing about meditation, and this is what that article is about, is that might be true. Like, you might be not putting your best effort into something that might be good for you. But when you meditate, that's the time where that actually doesn't matter. And so it's a point where you just take a point in the day where you're just saying, even if it's true that I'm just a, terrible, lazy, whatever, all these negative thoughts you have about yourself. Because that's the hard thing, is like, what if they're true? And then it's hard to let them go, because you keep thinking like, yeah, but I kind of mess up this way, so it might be true that I'm, a bad person. So you have to tell yourself, like, even if it's true right now for this 10 minutes that I'm setting aside, it literally doesn't matter. And the most important thing in the world is just to do nothing and just to like be still. And those are the thoughts that are really annoying. And to me, that annoyingness of that thought is similar to the creaky floor that we have in our apartment, because it happens when you don't want it to, and it happens all the time, and it's not going away. Just like those thoughts, like they're gonna be there. So it's one of those things with like how to maybe change your disposition and just look at it from a different angle, so that there's nothing wrong, nothing's failing. It just is what it is.
I love that.
If
And we're
that
gonna,
makes any sense.
yeah, we'll link to that article too, because I thought it was so interesting, and it was
really
good read. So
I thought it was funny just
thank you.
because it's like it's going back to just not dwelling on it, not like thinking that, you know, I like how you circle it back to our day-to-day thoughts of ourselves, because we genuinely we're really hard on ourselves all the time. And it's like, you can obviously, you know, do things to fix things, but it's like, you can't just dwell on something and it's just going to go away. It's like something you have to, you know.
Right.
On that note, like, what kind of mistakes have you made that you would kind of give advice of things not to do maybe for other people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, that's one of those things I dwell on, is the mistakes I've made. So I'm very prepared to answer this question.
Oh no.
He has a list he just pulls out.
I've just been writing.
We're sending him down a dark tunnel here.
He just starts to break down. Trevor, no. Okay, sorry.
Stop recording. Yeah, mistakes I've made, I could definitely list them, but the one that's held me back, like I said, I've only been kind of writing for the past like year and a half. I could have done it much sooner, and I could have committed to it, and I could be a much better writer. That, however good I think I am now, I could have been so much better. And I see my flaws. Like, even now I write and then I go back and read it a week later and I'm like, oh gosh, like I totally could have. It's obvious how I could have made it better. So if only I had been able to go through that experience when I was like 18, 19, 20. I was in school writing because I had to, not really out of passion. So the reason why I didn't write is because I thought that because I valued my writing and no one else did, that it somehow meant less, and it just wasn't as important. And we do that with a lot of things, like, you know, the clothes we wear, the way we interact with people, the styles. It's a social thing. Like, it's connecting with people, and we like to connect with people on our interests. And so, you know, writing my deepest thoughts and experiences in a journal, it's hard to connect with someone on that, much less I'd even be afraid to, you know. So, but I could have really tried to hone that skill a little more if I actually believed in the passion that it inspired in me. You know, I just kind of thought it was a little almost inconvenient to be passionate about writing. You know, I felt like I was passionate about something that wasn't going to get me anywhere. Like, why would I really like to do this thing that just, it's not going to make, there's no foreseeable way for it to like bring me like a fortune. It's not really connecting me to people. There's such a steep barrier of entry. And I'm sure, as both of you experience in the industries that you want to get into, there's so many people that want to get in, and the people who do get in, they're just lucky. And that can be really discouraging. And so all of that narrative of like, what if, that was preventing me from just being like, listen, I like writing. It's something I enjoy doing, whether or not anyone else enjoys it. Just do it because I like doing it. You know, so just trusting that feeling of, one of my favorite authors, his name is Joseph Campbell. He said, follow your bliss. And, you know, when you find that moment of like, true enjoyment, and you're really appreciating what you're doing, and it brings you life and fulfillment, then just keep doing it, follow it. You know, even if it's not going to make you money, it's worth doing.
I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is we think of like, what's going to make us money, what's a career path. And the truth is, what's in our heart and that passion is what eventually is supposed to make us successful and everything, because that's what comes natural to us. But I think we do it backwards. We look at the end goal and try to figure out how that should work and fit ourselves into it instead of fitting a career into who we already are.
And the fear, you know, as well.
Yeah.
Like the fear that you're not going to, you know, make it in like, you know, this big grandiose way. It's like, actually it's what you love. So do it, you know? That's amazing. So where do you see yourself in 5 years with your writing?
Yeah, that was an interesting question. So when I answered it on the questionnaire, like I hadn't even really answered it for myself yet, because I just like 5 years. It's like I'm just trying to get through the month, you know. But thinking about it, I think what I really want to do is just get something published or on the way to be published, or be in some agreement with a publisher about getting my writing out there in a formal way. I just would like to be on a way to doing this in some kind of professional capacity, even if I'm still with the company I'm with right now. I would like to have something like that going, and then hopefully once I get that done, I can maybe move on to doing it full time, depending on how well it does, or what my, you know, how it turns out. You know, if it becomes something I'm really passionate about, and I can get the agreements down, you know, just writing for the rest of my life would be the goal. I could see myself doing it forever. So
awesome. Very cool. So if like so you said that you were thinking of like writing a novel, and if you could write a novel, would you make it narrative, or would you compile all your blogs, or would you want to do something more like spiritual based?
Yeah, I want to work on a lot of that. Most of the stuff I have published right now is not fiction. It's just articles about actual topics that I find interesting, and I'm trying to string those together in like a coherent way, so they're all kind of related. And so at some point I can just take all the articles I've written, put them together as a book, and then publish it that way. But yeah, like I said before, there's something to writing fiction where you can just, it's like you can make up your own rules, and you start to feel like a kid again, you know, like you have your toys or your dolls or your sandbox or something, and it's like you just do what you want. There are no rules, just create something. And there's something really enjoyable about that. And I found that even though I'm more leaning towards nonfiction stuff, I just get so much enjoyment out of creating completely ridiculous fantasy situations that aren't real. You know, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Nice.
All right. So where can people find you and what you've written and all of that good stuff?
So my Twitter is the same thing as my website. So just A New Mythos, ANEWMYTHOS. And you can find me Twitter and medium.com and my website. And I'm not on the Instagram game yet. I probably should get better at like social media and stuff. Maybe I could probably use some advice on that end, but that's basically where I'm at right now.
Well, that's awesome. We'll definitely link to those articles and everything else. So anything else you wanted to share?
I would just encourage people to follow your bliss, keep stumbling forward, keep doing it, keep playing your game, and just be true to yourself, because it's worth it. And yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk and share that.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you. That was awesome. That was really great.
Thank you so much for being on. And for everybody listening, be sure to head over to iTunes and Spotify, give us 5 stars, leave us a review, and you can see the video up on YouTube and all of that good stuff. So thank you again, Trevor. I'm one of your hosts, Monica Ortega.
And I'm Kristen Herman.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Rose. Bye.